My name is Pamela Brittain, and I'm a PhD candidate at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education at the University of Toronto. I'm very pleased to be here today to discuss the Canadian Journal of Science, Mathematics, and Technology Education, one of the leading international journals in the fields of science, mathematics, and technology education, which strives to offer high-quality, peer-reviewed articles covering a variety of topics in the STEM education fields. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by a panel of editors representing a collection of papers organized around the theme of reimagining the M in STEM, mathematical actions for innovative, resilient, and culturally rich communities that appeared in a recent issue of the journal. Joining me today are Cynthia Nicol, Florence Glanfield, Krista Francis, and Cathy Nolan. Why don't I let each of you tell me a bit about yourselves? Why don't we start with Cynthia?
Great. Thank you, Pam. My name is Cynthia Nicol. I'm an associate professor in the Faculty of Education at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. And my research interests are in mathematics education, teacher education, culturally responsive education, and Indigenous education.
Wonderful. And next we'll go to Florence.
Hi, I'm Florence Glanfield. I'm a member of the Métis Nation of Alberta, one of the recognized Indigenous nations in this area we now call Canada. I'm a professor of mathematics education, and I serve as Vice Provost, Indigenous Programming and Research at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Alberta.
And next we'll go to Krista.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christa Francis. I'm here at the Workland School of Education at the University of Calgary, and I'm an associate professor. My research interests are about the teaching and learning of mathematics and technology. Put it in there.
And wonderful. And last but not least, Cathy.
Hi, I'm Cathy Nolan. I'm a professor of mathematics education at the Faculty of Education, University of Regina in Regina, Saskatchewan. My interests are math education, teacher education, and culturally responsive pedagogy.
Wonderful. Well, welcome all of you, and thank you for taking the time today. Our first question will go to Cynthia. Let's start off with talking a little bit about the theme and the journal articles within the special theme that appeared in this issue. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. Sorry. My cat. Okay, thank you, Pam. Yeah, our special, the papers organized in this collection are grounded in our collective concern for the need to try to respond to some of these really important issues that are facing us, including climate change, where we have seen climate refugees, global displacement, species loss, ecosystem degradation, and we're trying to think about how we might respond and be in the world in a different way, where we're not valuing just being human over being more than human, where consumerism is viewed as progress and the use of non-renewable resources is seen as a human right. So we're trying to think more about how science, mathematics, engineering, and technology, like the STEM disciplines, are essential in helping us understand this global and local issues that we're in, this kind of crisis, you might call it, that we're in, and trying to figure out how we can engage in action toward that and toward more sustainable ways of living that might help us think about how to live in ways that aren't colonizing other languages or colonizing other cultures and land. But when we think about STEM around the world internationally, there's this global desire for technological innovation that feeds this hunger for economic growth and prosperity. And we see that STEM is helping us feed these kind of current crisis that we're in with this desire for technological consumption. And we argue that STEM, and particularly the mathematics of STEM, can be a way for us to respond to it as well. So we're asking then, how can we reimagine STEM, and particularly the M in STEM, because we're math educators, to rethink and think about innovative, resilient, and culturally responsive communities where we're in a place where we can build strong economies, but at the same time have ecological sustainability. And to do that within local and global context, with and in community. So we're exploring how the M in STEM can contribute toward a more holistic relationship between the human and the natural environment.
Wonderful. It sounds like a wonderful theme.
All right. So overall, the theme includes 6 papers around this particular question, around thinking about innovative, resilient, and culturally responsive communities by reimagining the M in STEM. And we have 2 discussant papers as well. And the authors include Indigenous and non-Indigenous scholars, mathematicians and math educators, scholars and grad students, both within Canada and outside Canada, and thinking about this with a broad reach, local but broad reach. So maybe just to finish with thinking about how Michael Shaughnessy calls this trying to kind of reawaken or even just awaken the silent M in STEM by rethinking that the mathematics is being used as more than a tool for the other subjects of science, technology, and engineering, and how we might be able to think about that by drawing upon Indigenous perspectives, knowledges, and practices, and engaging with Indigenous scholars towards reimagining the M in STEM.
Wonderful. And it sounds like such a diverse group to be involved. The next question is for Christa. Can you tell me how did you choose the CJSMTE as the home for this special issue, or a special theme, I should say?
I did exactly what you said not to do. I have on mute, sorry. We thought it was very important to speak to a Canadian audience as well as an international audience, but in particular, we're situating ourselves in the Canadian context. With Truth and Reconciliation going on right now, we thought, you know, we thought of a Canadian journal as being quite important for us. And the CJSMTE journal is the premier STEM journal here in Canada. So it made sense for us to try and have a STEM special issue with this journal.
Wonderful. And I'll put this to both you, Christa, and to Florence. Can you provide me with some examples of the articles and some of the concepts that were touched upon?
Well, I'll begin with the one of the articles that I co-wrote with Cynthia and Cathy here, as well as Susan, who's not with us today. And again, we were talking about our own lived experiences, examining our practices of trying to decolonize mathematics. And in particular, I spoke about my experiences working in a Northern Alberta First Nations school with children in grade 4, working with teachers, teaching them how to use robotics to teach mathematics, and just how powerful we found robotics for helping children learn about measurement and rational numbers, and the experiences that we gained in that school, as well as my own tensions. Are robotics another colonizing practice, or is it something that could be considered enabling?
Thank you, Christa. Okay, thank you. So I'll just talk a bit about the paper that my colleagues and I wrote, and there were 2 of us who are Indigenous, and a scholar in curriculum theory, mathematics education, and ecological perspectives that joined us. And we really, because our paper was rooted in sort of an Indigenous way of being and knowing and doing, we couldn't limit our conversation to the M in STEM, because for us, it's all comes together. The STEM is there. And we try to use illustrative examples of the ways in which Indigenous people work with the land and how STEM comes from the land and can be used as a way to build communities and to be representative of what's important in the cultural aspects of communities. And we argue that this is important because, like Cynthia mentioned, across the world, we have these notions that STEM needs to include more diverse voices. We need to have diversity within the STEM fields. But what we've never ever questioned is, what is STEM? And so our paper really tries to take up the notion and position it as an emergent phenomena coming from the land, and that in order to meet the needs of diversity, that we actually have to question the underlying structures of what we think STEM is about. We use examples from architecture to do that and play with the idea, and we invite the readers to come and play with ideas around listening to the land, being with the land, and imagining STEM from that perspective. Thank you.
Oh, it sounds absolutely fascinating. So the next question would go to you, Cathy. What would you like to leave readers of this article with? Or sorry, of this theme and collection of articles?
Well, I think it might be valuable for the readers to know a little of the history of the collaboration. We go back to June in 2018, actually, this large group of people that Cynthia invited to UBC for a 2-day think-in about the M in STEM, where we first wanted to just look at new ways of thinking about the M in STEM. And that eventually led to a conference proposal for a symposium at AERA, which we delivered in April of 2019. From that, we were all very enthused and excited about putting together some of the papers that we presented at AERA, and that we got very good responses to from the audience members. And so we approached CJSMTE to see if they might be interested in us putting in a proposal to have this special theme, a collection of papers around the special theme. And so that's sort of how it all began. And I think the directions we more or less gave to the authors in writing their papers and researching their papers were a series of questions that we actually present in the intro of the special theme. So questions like, how have you experienced the M in STEM? Is there an obligation, do you feel, to reimagine the M in STEM? And whose obligation is it, if it is an obligation? What role can or do Indigenous communities play in reimagining the pathways for STEM and STEM education? We also had as one of the guiding questions, how can mathematicians, math educators participate in reimagining STEM and STEM education, and to decolonize educational practices? And finally, we just wanted to know from a personal perspective, how is it that you are or want to reimagine the M in STEM? And so we think it's important that the readers know that these are the questions that guided the authors. And in the same way, we hope the readers will consider them as they engage in our texts.
Wonderful. Yeah, it sounds like it definitely gives the readers a lot to think about, and some good hard questions to look into. So I'll just kind of leave the last question open. Anyone else have any final thoughts that they'd like to offer?
Yeah, I would like to just reiterate, I mean, you asked us about why this journal, and Cathy mentioned about the decolonizing. And I mean, one of the themes through all of the papers is this notion of decolonizing. And I think that's really important in the STEM fields. And yes, this is a Canadian journal with a broad international audience. And I think what these papers can all invite international readers to engage in is thinking about the ways in which, wherever they are located around the world, the ways in which colonization has framed the discussion around science, technology, engineering, and mathematics more broadly, and then specifically in relation to mathematics education. And what I love about this collection of papers is that we have the diverse voices that are often underrepresented in the STEM conversation. So Indigenous voices, voices of individuals who have been educated outside of North America. And this is the gift that this collection of papers has for the national and international community in mathematics, science, technology, education.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much to all of you for taking the time to speak today about this incredible and very relevant theme. You can read more on reimagining the M in STEM, mathematical actions for innovative, resilient, and culturally rich communities in the journal, which can be found online at springer.com/42330. Once again, I'm Pamela Brittain, and from everyone here at the Canadian Journal of Science, Mathematics, and Technology Education, thank you for joining us today. And thank you to our wonderful panel members. And please remember that you can follow us on Twitter at CJSMTE.